Imagine growing up without ever hearing a single word spoken to you. No hello, no goodnight, no I love you, not even your own name. For 13 years, your entire world is silence. Now imagine one day, someone opens the door, and for the first time, you step outside into a world where everyone around you is speaking a language you've never once heard in your life. This isn't fiction. This actually happened, and what scientists discovered from this one girl completely changed how we understand the human brain, and it revealed something unsettling about childhood that every single one of us has lived through without even realizing it. It's the early 1970s, in a quiet suburb in Los Angeles, California. A social worker walks into a house on a routine welfare check. Nothing about the outside of the house looks unusual, but what she finds inside will shock the entire psychological community for decades to come. Inside, she finds a 13-year-old girl. She weighs barely 59 pounds. She can't stand up straight. Her legs have never fully developed from lack of movement. She can't chew solid food, and she makes almost no sound at all. For her entire childhood, every single day, for 13 years, she had been kept locked in a small back bedroom, tied to a potty chair by day, strapped into a crib-like cage at night. The curtains were always drawn. If she made any noise, a cry, a whimper, even a cough, her father would beat her. So over time, she learned the safest thing to do was to stay completely, permanently silent. To protect her identity for the rest of her life, researchers gave her a pseudonym. They called her Genie, because like a genie freed from a bottle after a long imprisonment, she was stepping into the world for the very first time. Once Genie entered care, a team of linguists and psychologists at UCLA began studying her closely, and almost immediately, they noticed something surprising. Genie was intelligent. She could solve visual puzzles quickly. She understood facial expressions. She could point, gesture, and even draw with real detail. But there was one thing, just one thing that she could never fully learn to do. No matter how many years of therapy she received, she could never truly speak in full sentences. She eventually learned hundreds of individual words: apple, want, go, mother. She could even learn new words fairly quickly. But she could never combine them the way children normally do. She couldn't ask, "Where's my mother going?" She could only say something like, "Mother go where?" The grammar, the glue that holds language together, never fully clicked into place. This confused scientists deeply. If she was clearly intelligent, if she clearly wanted to communicate, why couldn't her brain grasp something as fundamental as sentence structure? This single question would lead to one of the most important discoveries in the history of psychology. For decades before Genie was found, a linguist named Eric Lenneberg had proposed a theory, one that couldn't be tested because it would be unethical to ever isolate a child on purpose just to prove it. He called it the critical period hypothesis. The theory says this: your brain has a biological window, roughly from birth until puberty, where it is perfectly wired to absorb language automatically, effortlessly, almost like a sponge. This is why young children can pick up 2 or 3 languages at once without even trying, while adults struggle for years just to learn one. But once that window closes, once puberty hits, the theory says the brain loses much of that flexibility forever. Genie, tragically, became living proof of this theory, because she was rescued right at the edge of that window, at exactly 13 years old. When researchers ran brain scans on Genie while she attempted to speak, they found something remarkable. In almost every human being, language is processed primarily in the left hemisphere of the brain. But in Genie's brain, the right hemisphere, the side normally associated with emotion, spatial awareness, and creativity, was lighting up instead. Her brain hadn't just failed to learn language on time. It had physically rerouted itself, trying to compensate in the only way it still could. It was proof that the brain doesn't just wait patiently for input. If the right input doesn't arrive in time, the brain adapts permanently in ways that can never be fully undone. Think of it like building a house. If you pour the foundation and let it set properly while it's still wet and workable, you can build anything on top of it. But if you wait too long, if the foundation dries and hardens in the wrong shape, you can still build a house. It just might lean. It might creak. It will never be quite as strong as it should have been. This is also part of why adults find it so much harder to become fluent in a new language compared to children, and why kids who grow up bilingual seem to switch between languages so effortlessly. Their foundation was poured while the concrete was still wet. But Genie's story teaches us something even bigger than language. It teaches us that childhood itself is not just a phase we pass through. It's active construction. Every conversation a toddler overhears, every bedtime story, every "how was your day" at the dinner table. These aren't just nice moments. They are literally bricks being laid down one by one inside a developing brain during a window that will eventually, quietly, close forever. As for Genie herself, she made real progress. She learned to communicate her needs. She formed bonds with the researchers who cared for her. But she would never fully master language the way the rest of us do without even trying. Sadly, her case also became controversial. Some researchers were later accused of prioritizing their research and funding over Genie's actual well-being. Eventually, funding dried up, the study ended abruptly, and Genie was moved between several care homes. To this day, no one knows exactly where she is or how she's doing. Her story is tragic, but it remains one of the most powerful proofs we have that the human mind isn't simply born. It's built, piece by piece, word by word, moment by moment. So the next time you talk to a child, remember, you're not just making conversation. You might be building their mind. If this story fascinated you, there are dozens more hidden truths about the human mind waiting to be uncovered. Subscribe to Oryn, because the strangest mysteries aren't out in space, they're inside us.